My father slammed his fist on the table so hard that the silverware jumped. The mashed potatoes splattered on my plate, and my aunt gasped. I had barely said a full sentence, but his voice came roaring across the dining room. "You ungrateful brat! You think this is just about you?" I couldn't speak. I looked across the table, and every face there, my mother's, my cousin's, even my grandmother's, held that same look: disappointment, disgust. Like I had just broken something sacred. All because I said no. No, I wasn't going to transfer my inheritance to my brother. It wasn't the first time I was made to feel selfish for simply protecting what was mine. But this time, it felt different. I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't the quiet one they could guilt into giving up anything. I was an adult. And I had reached my limit. I still remember my brother's smirk. He didn't even look surprised. Like he expected Dad to explode on my behalf. Like this was all part of a plan. My hands were trembling under the table, but I kept my face steady. I'd spent too many years being the good kid, the one who always made things easier for everyone else. But now I was done. Hi. If you're listening to this, thank you for being here. I never thought I'd share this story publicly, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Have you ever been made to feel guilty just for drawing a line? Just for not giving in, when everyone expected you to? Because that's what this was. Not a request. An expectation. An assumption that I would, as always, give something up to keep the family together. This time, they didn't just want my help. They wanted my inheritance, my future. My grandfather's final gift to me. And when I said no, they turned on me. If this kind of story hits close to home, if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity, I hope you'll stick around. And if you're new here, welcome to HD Reddit Stories. We share real stories like this every day. Hit that subscribe button if you believe no one should be pressured to sacrifice what's rightfully theirs. Because what happened after that dinner changed everything. It didn't start at the dinner table. It started long before that. Years before, actually. Maybe even the moment my brother was born. Growing up, I never really understood favoritism. I thought every family was like mine, where one child shines and the other quietly fades into the background. I was the older one, the reliable one, the one who never caused trouble. My brother Kyle was, well, Kyle. The golden child. The one everyone bent rules for. The one who could make a mistake, smile, and somehow still be rewarded for it. I remember once, I got a B+ on a math test, and Dad refused to let me use the computer for a week. Kyle? He skipped school and crashed his bike into a neighbor's mailbox, and got a brand new bike the following weekend. So he could learn responsibility. I wish I was exaggerating. Still, I told myself it was normal. That being the eldest meant being held to a higher standard. So I worked harder. I cleaned up after him, made excuses for him when he forgot things, covered for him when he messed up. I thought that was what love looked like. What being a good sibling meant. Then came college. I got in on scholarship. I was proud. It was the first time I truly felt like my hard work was being recognized. But when I told my parents, the only thing my father said was, "That's great. But make sure you don't rub it in your brother's face. He's still figuring things out." Kyle didn't apply anywhere. He said college wasn't his thing. He stayed home, worked a few odd jobs, then quit each one within a few months. When Grandpa died, I was the one who handled the hospital paperwork, the funeral arrangements, the insurance calls. I stayed up nights writing his obituary, sorting through his dusty filing cabinets, and calling people I didn't even know to notify them of his passing. Kyle came to the funeral late and left early. A month later, I received a letter from my grandfather's lawyer. Grandpa had left me his savings account, his house, and a note. Handwritten. Just for me. "You always took care of things," it said. "This is for your future. Don't let anyone take it from you." That note hit me harder than the inheritance itself. It was the first time someone in my family acknowledged what I had done, what I was doing. And it wasn't about money, it was about validation. About finally being seen. I cried for hours that night. Not because of the money, but because someone had finally said, "I see you. I appreciate you." Of course, the moment my parents found out, the story changed. Mom called first. "That money was meant for us, for the family," she said, her voice tight with judgment. "Your grandfather didn't mean to cut Kyle out. He probably just forgot to include him." Forgot? The letter was in his handwriting. He named me specifically. But I didn't argue. Not yet. Then Kyle started texting. At first, it was subtle. "Hey, think you could help me pay off some stuff? Just till I get back on my feet." Then it turned into, "You know Grandpa meant that money for both of us, right?" Then it got aggressive. "You're seriously gonna keep it all for yourself? After everything I've done for you?" Everything he'd done? Like letting me drive him to work for months while he never put gas in the car? Or lying to my parents and blaming me when he got caught with weed in high school? I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just stopped responding. Then the campaign began. My parents called again. And again. Always with a new reason why I should share. Dad finally said, "Look, if you won't transfer the house, at least sign over part of the savings. Your brother's trying to start a business." "What kind of business?" I asked. They couldn't tell me. "He's figuring it out," was the best they could say. And then came the dinner. They invited me over for a family meeting, and I was naive enough to go. I thought maybe they wanted to understand my side. Maybe this was the moment we'd all finally speak honestly. Instead, I walked into a setup. The entire extended family was there. My uncle, my cousins, even my grandmother, who never left the house for anything. Plates were set, food steaming, everything looked like a warm holiday gathering. But the air was tight. Heavy. Everyone was watching me. The moment I sat down, Dad launched into it. No small talk. No grace. No easing in. "We all agree," he said, stabbing a piece of ham with his fork. "The inheritance should be shared. It's what your grandfather would have wanted." I felt my stomach twist. I looked at my mom, hoping for even a flicker of support. Nothing. Just cold, expectant eyes. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "But the will was clear. Grandpa made his decision. And I'm honoring it." That's when he slammed the table. That's when the silverware jumped. That's when everyone else went silent. "You think this is about legal papers?" he snapped. "This is about family. You have more than you need. Your brother is struggling. You're just sitting there, letting him drown." I almost laughed. Drown? Kyle had never worked more than 6 months at any job. He borrowed money from everyone and never paid it back. He still lived rent-free in my parents' basement, eating their food, playing video games until 3 a.m. And somehow, I was the selfish one. But I didn't say any of that. I just stood up. "If this is how you treat me for saying no, then maybe the problem isn't me," I said, my voice shaking. "Maybe the problem is how easily you expect me to give up everything." I walked out. No one stopped me. Days passed without a word from them. Then came the group text. "You've made your choice. Don't expect this family to come running when you're the one who needs help." As if they ever had. For the first time in years I felt free. Hurt, yes. But free. Until the legal documents came. A letter. From a lawyer. Claiming I had unduly influenced my grandfather, that the will was suspicious, and that the family intended to challenge it in court. It was signed by my father. On behalf of Kyle. That's when I realized, it wasn't just guilt anymore. It wasn't just manipulation. They were going to try to take everything by force. And I was done being quiet. I didn't cry when I got the letter from their lawyer. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry. I just stared at it for a long time, then set it down gently on the kitchen counter. The accusations were absurd. Undue influence, suspicious circumstances, lack of testamentary capacity. All of it boiled down to one thing: they didn't get what they wanted, and now they were trying to punish me for it. What stunned me wasn't the lawsuit. It was how easily they turned legal on me, as if I weren't family, as if I hadn't spent my whole life trying to prove I was worth something to them. They didn't even call. Just served papers and moved on, like it was business. And I realized then, I wasn't part of their family anymore. Maybe I never really was. I spent that night sitting on my living room floor, my grandfather's letter unfolded in my lap. I read it again and again. Don't let anyone take it from you. His handwriting was shaky but familiar. He knew them. He saw the cracks before I ever did. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Kendra, someone I knew through a friend who specialized in estate defense. She was fierce, direct, and within an hour of reviewing the will, she looked up and said, "You've got nothing to worry about. This is solid." I felt my lungs loosen a little. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Still, Kendra warned me that family disputes like this don't always follow logic. "It's not just about law. It's about perception," she said. "They're going to try to make you look like the villain." She was right. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emails, depositions, passive-aggressive social media posts from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. My father went on a local Facebook group and shared a half-baked post about greedy children who turn their backs on family. My brother commented with a broken heart emoji. The comment section exploded. But I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I collected everything: screenshots, call logs, text messages from Kyle asking for money, even a voice memo where he joked about milking the old man before he died. Kendra helped me build a file. A full timeline. Every favor I'd done. Every receipt. Every message that proved this inheritance wasn't something I'd stolen. It was something I earned, even if I never asked for it. We filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Attached were the medical records from my grandfather's last month, showing full mental clarity, notes from his doctor, and even a notarized audio message he recorded the same day he signed the will, saying clearly that he wanted me to have everything, and why. The audio file hit harder than anything else. Hearing his voice again, slow but steady. She was the only one who showed up. The only one who made time. I'm not punishing the others, I'm rewarding her. That's what this is. When the court hearing finally came, my father didn't even look at me. Kyle wore a wrinkled button-up like he was going to a bad job interview. Their lawyer read a generic statement about family unity and the need to respect unspoken wishes. Kendra stood up calmly. She played the audio. She submitted the letter. She outlined their history of financial dependency on me and my grandfather, and how none of them had stepped up during his final year. The judge asked a few questions. Then she nodded. "Unless there's additional evidence, I see no basis to continue this suit." Just like that, it was over. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, I got a call from my mother. "I just wanted to talk," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "I feel like things got out of hand." I said nothing. She continued, "Maybe you could still help your brother. He's not doing well." I could almost laugh. Not doing well? After he tried to take me to court? "Mom," I said slowly, "you sent a lawyer after me. You tried to smear me online. And you never once asked me how I was doing." She sighed. "We were scared. Your father, he panicked. You know how he gets." Yes. I knew. I'd spent my entire life knowing how he gets. I told her I needed space. She said she understood, but I could tell she didn't. She hung up without saying, "I love you." Weeks passed. Then one morning, I opened my mailbox to find a formal eviction notice for Kyle. See, he'd still been living in the house my grandfather left me. I hadn't kicked him out during the lawsuit, but now that it was over, the title had fully transferred to me, and the lease was void. He had 30 days to leave. Kyle called me the next day. He didn't scream. He didn't curse. he just said. You really doing this? I wanted to say so many things. You tried to steal from me. You humiliated me. You made me feel like I didn't matter. But instead I just said, it's time. He hung up. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, this time from a storage company. He'd moved out. Left a few things behind. Didn't even try to say goodbye. And still, somehow, I felt guilty. I started therapy after that. Because even though I'd done everything right, even though I'd defended myself and kept what was mine, there was still a voice in my head saying, was it worth it? Was this the price of winning? My therapist asked me a question I still think about. If someone asked you to burn down your house to warm them for one night, and you say no, who's selfish? I didn't answer right away. But now, I know the answer. I wasn't selfish. I was just done being the fireplace everyone threw wood into, and never cared what turned to ash. I started changing other parts of my life. I cut back on checking social media. I stopped answering texts from family members who only reached out when they wanted something. I took a solo trip to Colorado, stayed in a cabin, and hiked for hours with no signal. I sat by lakes, watched the sunrise, breathed cold mountain air, and for the first time in years, I felt safe in my own life. Then came the email. From an old cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She wrote, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad it was. We were wrong. That email meant more than she'll ever know. Because in a sea of silence and blame, it was one voice saying, I see you. Eventually, I moved. I rented out the house to a young couple starting their life together. The income helped me go back to grad school, something I'd been putting off for years because I was always on call for my family. One day, in class, a professor asked us to write a short essay titled, What does legacy mean to you? I wrote, Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you protect. It's the boundary you draw so that future generations don't carry the weight you had to. I don't talk to my father anymore. My mother sends the occasional holiday card. Kyle. I don't know where he is. And for once, I'm okay not knowing. Because I didn't just keep what was mine. I reclaimed who I was. The house was quiet now. Not just physically quiet, the kind of quiet you get when the windows are closed and the world outside forgets you, but emotionally quiet. The kind of peace that doesn't feel borrowed. The kind of quiet you fight for. I stood by the front window, a cup of coffee in my hands, watching a young couple pull up in a modest U-Haul. The woman was pregnant, maybe 6 or 7 months along. Her husband, tall, a little clumsy, jumped out of the truck and opened the back, revealing mismatched furniture, boxes taped with bold black markers. Kitchen, books, baby stuff. This was their beginning. And the house, my house, was becoming part of their story now. I didn't feel sad letting go of the keys. I felt grateful. This place had been the setting of so many things for me: grief, betrayal, awakening. But now it was turning into something else, something lighter. It was no longer a battlefield. It was a home again. After they moved in, I drove away without looking back. That was intentional. I didn't need a dramatic last glance. The closure had already happened, weeks earlier, when I stood in the empty living room and whispered, Thank you, Grandpa? I don't know if he would have wanted all of this. The drama. The lawsuits. The tension. But I do know one thing: he believed in me. And I chose to believe in that belief. I rented a small apartment in a different city, not too far, but far enough that no one could drop by without warning. I furnished it simply. Nothing fancy. Just peace, just mine. For once, I wasn't building a life around who needed me. I was building it around me. I started saying no more. No to family group chats that became toxic vents. No to invitations that were really obligations. No to carrying emotional burdens I didn't create. It was hard at first. Every no felt like I was tearing at some invisible thread. But then, slowly, the guilt faded. And what replaced it was clarity. One evening, a letter came in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. It was from my mom. She wrote, "I don't know if this will reach you, or if you'll even read it." I was angry. We all were. But mostly, I was afraid. Afraid of losing the family. Afraid of watching your brother spiral. And yes, afraid of watching you grow strong enough to walk away. I know now we didn't protect you the way we should have. I won't ask you to forgive us. I just hope you're okay. Love. Mom. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. But I felt something loosen in my chest. Maybe not forgiveness. But recognition. Maybe for once she saw me for who I really was, not just the one who fixed everything, but the one who needed something too. I placed the letter in a drawer. I haven't written back. Maybe one day. Not long after, I got an email from the couple renting the house. They attached a photo, one I didn't expect. It was of their baby girl, wrapped in a soft blanket, sleeping peacefully in what used to be my grandfather's old study. They wrote, "We named her Grace. Thank you for giving us a place to start." I stared at the screen for a long time. That was the moment I realized how full circle everything had become. This inheritance, once a burden, once a battlefield, had turned into a foundation for someone else's joy. I hadn't just kept what was mine. I had honored it. And passed it forward in the quietest, most beautiful way possible. That's the part no one saw coming. Not my dad. Not Kyle. Not even me. They thought I was hoarding. That I was being selfish. But what I was really doing was healing. And sometimes, healing doesn't look like revenge or confrontation. Sometimes, it looks like handing over a set of keys, stepping back, and watching something new grow where everything once fell apart. So if you're listening, if you've ever been told that protecting yourself is selfish, or that saying no makes you cold, please hear me when I say this. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not wrong for honoring boundaries, even when others don't. And you are allowed, absolutely allowed, to walk away from people who only loved you when you were convenient. I used to think family meant sacrifice. Now I know, family is the place where love should never cost you your sanity, your future, or your name. I kept my name. I kept my future. And in doing so, I found myself again. Sometimes, the people you expect to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. And sometimes, the greatest act of love you can give yourself is simply this: to stop trying to earn love that should have been freely given in the first place. This story isn't just about inheritance, or money or legal documents. It's about identity. It's about reclaiming your worth when the people closest to you insist that your role in the family is to give and give and give, until there's nothing left of you. What I learned, after months of silence, court battles, and difficult goodbyes, is that boundaries are not betrayals. Saying no is not cruelty. Refusing to self-sacrifice is not a moral failure. In fact, drawing that line, especially with people who think they're entitled to your life, your time, your future, is one of the bravest, most necessary things you can ever do. I was raised to be the good kid, the helper, the one who understood, who apologized first, who smoothed everything over. And for years, I wore that role like armor, thinking it made me strong. But I've come to realize that real strength is knowing when to take the armor off. Real strength is vulnerability, clarity, and the courage to choose yourself, even when no one else does. I learned that some families mistake loyalty for obedience. They want you to love them, but only on their terms. They want closeness, but only if you keep quiet. And the moment you step out of that mold, the moment you say, "This doesn't work for me anymore," they treat it like a personal attack. But the truth is, healing often feels like rebellion to people still benefiting from your wounds. This story taught me that love without respect isn't love, it's control. It's conditional approval wrapped in guilt. And guilt is a powerful weapon. It's why so many people stay stuck in cycles of overgiving, overexplaining, and overcompensating. But guilt fades when you face it. When you ask yourself, would I ever treat someone I love the way they're treating me? If the answer is no, then maybe you already know what you need to do. I also learned that letting go doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it's quiet. It's a decision made in the privacy of your own heart. I'm done playing a role I never asked for. You don't owe anyone a dramatic scene. You don't owe them another explanation. What you owe to yourself is peace. And peace often comes when you stop begging for people to see you, and instead choose to see yourself fully. When my family turned on me, I felt like I had failed them. But I hadn't. I had finally stopped failing myself. I had finally honored the truth I'd buried under years of being the bigger person. I realized that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. And being strong doesn't mean staying silent. The inheritance, yes, it was a gift. But the real inheritance was the lesson it brought, that I didn't need permission to protect what was mine. That I didn't have to shrink to make others comfortable. That I didn't have to give everything away just to be accepted. And most importantly, I learned that legacy is not about what we leave behind in bank accounts or houses. Legacy is how we choose to break patterns. To say, this ends with me. To say, the next generation won't carry the same pain. Today, I live a life that feels quiet, but it's full. I no longer check my phone expecting guilt-tripping texts. I no longer replay old arguments in my head, wondering what I could have said differently. I don't have all the answers. I don't know if I'll ever repair those relationships. But I do know that I am finally deeply okay. So if you're reading this, and you feel torn between loyalty and sanity, if you're being asked to choose between peace and performance, please know that your worth was never supposed to come at this kind of cost. You are not the villain for choosing yourself. You are not broken for walking away from a family that only saw your value in what you could give. And you are not alone. We all deserve a life where we are loved as we are, not for how well we bend, or how often we say yes, or how silently we suffer. Treasure the people who love you without condition. And for the ones who don't, let them go.